I believe the best way to fix the Gauntlet is to actually make it harder and the drop rates rarer. Now let me explain. Hi, my name is CJ or Me+Pi and welcome to my Gauntlet pitch. After seeing the summer campfire, it is absolutely inevitable that we will see changes to the Gauntlet. Instead of just outright speeding up the content, what if we actually tried to make it better? Instead of band-aid fixing it, why don't we improve it for the long term? In this video, I'll talk about the main problems of the Gauntlet, concerns people have about changing the Gauntlet, and my solution for making the Gauntlet a more enjoyable way to spend your time. I'm going to assume that you're coming into this video with some knowledge about the Gauntlet. You've probably watched somebody do it or you've done it hundreds of times yourself. So I'm not going to go into every minute detail about what is wrong with the Gauntlet. The quick bullet points: we're spending more time running around collecting things than fighting the boss. The boss in itself is boring and going dry feels bad. Gauntlet shouldn't stray too far from its original identity, which is prepare and then fight. The Gauntlet is a rite of passage for Iron Men. If you cannot complete the grind, you do not deserve to be an Iron Man. Learning the content should be challenging. The first Gauntlet completion is memorable. How long did it take you to get your first completion? For me, I think my first Corrupted took about 4 hours. This one's a bit niche, but speedruns in the Gauntlet are kind of special because it's one of the only places in the game where power creep cannot affect it. So how can we make the content harder and the drop rates rarer, yet not be unfair to the people who've done it before, and those who will do it now and in the future? Have you guys ever played a party game where you're playing a mini game and for the first 15 seconds or so it feels like nothing's happening? You might have to jump over a rope one time, but you're really just waiting for it to ramp up and get good. That's exactly what Gauntlet feels like. So I think we should shift the pacing of the fight a little bit by chopping off a little bit of its HP, maybe going from 1000 to 800. To compensate for some of this HP missing, I think we should add a mechanic or two. First of all, the floor will be more active from the get-go, and additional mechanics could include the range ball from the Echo Gauntlet fight, or Gauntlet does a stomp, forcing the player to use protect from melee. More mechanics will lead to a more engaging boss fight, and with the pacing being faster, more mistakes are inevitable, meaning the player will need to eat more food to compensate for the amount of HP that Gauntlet has lost. This will also reward players that have a lot of experience with the fight. I understand that Gauntlet is a stamina battle, meaning it is preparing however much food, your HP versus his HP, your damage versus his damage, last man standing as soon as you enter those gates. So they may need to tweak a few damage numbers, resulting in more chip damage, but I believe they should try to preserve the difficulty as close as possible with these pacing shifts in place. Okay, so now we have a Gauntlet with 800 HP, he has more mechanics, and he might even be hitting you harder. Let's make the drop rate rarer. Because players will eventually get really good at the fight, doing it almost perfectly most times, the kill time is going to go down by about 20%. To compensate for that, I think we should increase the drop rate from upwards of 40 to 50%. This part of the pitch is where it gets spicy. The best way to preserve the difficulty that is people's first Corrupted Gauntlets, while also making people who go dry not feel as bad, is to add a progression system. When you are inside the Gauntlet, you currently pick up crystal shards and you craft gear, weapons, potions, vials, teleports, etc. What if every time you use crystal shards to craft an item, up to a maximum of let's say 500 shards, you received a point? If you successfully defeat Gauntlet that run, you will get that many points. Points that you obtain can now be spent at the singing bowl within the Gauntlet's lobby. Anything you spend your points on will now be in your inventory when you enter the Gauntlet. Yes, I'm talking about permanent upgrades. So what could this look like? Well, let's run an example. Let's say I've completed 20 gauntlets and I've obtained the maximum of 10,000 points. I head over to the singing bowl all excited that I've gotten all these points and I can finally get my first unlock. Because these unlocks are permanent, they are going to take a while to get, but every time you get a permanent upgrade, that's essentially going to save you time for every run going forward. So even if my 20 gauntlet runs got me all 10,000 points and I can only buy a paddlefish, that is still one less paddlefish I'll ever have to get. And eventually, if I go dry enough, I'll have so many points and so many unlocks that I may not even need to prep before I can fight the boss. This is heavily subject to balancing, which is why I believe the drop rates would need to go way up, since we're not only making the boss faster, but we'll also be able to fight the boss sooner in the long run. Restrictions could be put in place, so maybe you can only have 10 paddlefish, maybe you can't get tier 3 weapons, maybe you can't get a bow or staff off rip, or maybe you still have to make a potion, forcing the player to prayer flick if they decide to go directly into the boss. It all depends how Jagex deems prep should be handled in the grand scheme of things. Just to check in and make sure you're following, I'm suggesting we make the enhanced crystal weapon seed a 1 in 600 drop, meanwhile the boss will be about 20% faster. And the time you spend prepping isn't actually wasted because you're now receiving points that'll help you in the long run. Balancing this is a bit above my pay grade, but I wanted to run by a little example. With my previous example of 20 gauntlets equaling 1 paddlefish, that means at 300 gauntlet you now now have 15 paddlefish as soon as you enter. I think a fair estimate for a paddlefish is about 3 seconds of time, considering the time it takes to get to the thing, fish it, and then cook it. So at 300 gauntlets, if you're starting with 15 paddlefish, that means you're saving 45 seconds a run. And those 45 seconds that you save will now go towards another run in that same hour. 45 seconds times 6 gauntlet an hour is almost 5 minutes. So by the 300 kill mark, you're almost getting an entire gauntlet more per hour. The sweet spot of balancing this is very difficult, but I think it is a much more interesting system than what we currently have, and allows the player to be spending more time killing the boss than they are doing monotonous prep. Roughly 63% of players will reach the drop rate before they get the item, and the other 37% will have to deal with the rest. And the drier they get, the less it feels bad, because at the very least, they are now spending more time directly going for their drop instead of running around collecting items prepping. I think the goal of this progression system is to skew more people towards the time to completion and fewer way outside of it. This may also incentivize people to grind out a Blade of Seldor, since getting their first one is a bit harder than getting the second one, and it may prove to be a good moneymaker in the long term for people who really want to commit to the grind. One quality of life upgrade I think would be great for this system would actually be stackable resources. Again, this could be an unlock because we don't want to ruin the challenge for first time players. I don't think juggling is good content. I think it would be better gone from the gauntlet, and it would make a lot more sense to not have to juggle an inventory of food as soon as you spawn in. If progression is toggleable, speed times will largely be left as they are, and speedrunners will have a new category for progression and non-progression. If a system like this did happen, I think reparations are to be expected. Pretty much just take your kill count and multiply it by however many points, and you now have to battle the new drop rate. And a bonus feature of this system is that new bots will have a harder time getting the drops and hopefully get banned before they get any meaningful progression. The Gauntlet is a very unique piece of content. It's a great challenge at first, but then it becomes extremely boring. This progression system would relieve some of the pain points, while also giving the player that number go up good feel that we all love. The boss fight wouldn't be as sluggish and provide more of a challenge, hopefully resulting in a more engaging experience, making the drops feel that much better. So that's my pitch. I'd love to see some good discussion in the comments. Let me know what you think, what you'd change, or just how you feel about the Gauntlet in general. Again, we are definitely getting Gauntlet changes at this point, so let's try to be constructive and get the best outcome as possible. This is not my usual kind of video, so liking it would probably help me a lot and help get this concept out there. There's also a chance that you may like some of my other videos. I play an endgame Iron Man, but also have a PvP locked hardcore ultimate chance man account. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, hit that subscribe button. I'm on the journey to 1,000 subscribers, but that is all for now. So thank you again for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Take care of yourselves. Peace, peace, peace.